Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's session, Sustainable Conclusions from Design, Construction to Landscape. This is the final session in this insightful series hosted by the Ethos Foundation as a part of the ARCOS Saath Mentorship Awards program supported by Emphasis F1 Foundation. This mentorship program has provided 7 emerging architectural practices with expert guidance to refine their sustainability-driven projects. Over the past sessions, we've explored critical aspects of sustainability frameworks, permaculture, rating systems, material choices, inclusivity, and environmental responsibility. If you've missed any of the recordings, any of these sessions, recordings are available on our YouTube channel, ARCOS Ethos Foundation. Today, architect Varsha will discuss sustainable landscapes, how sustainable homes and landscapes can be designed with self-sufficient site planning. Looking forward to an engaging and insightful discussion. I hand it over now to Ankita of Ethos Foundation to take us through this session. Over to you, Ankita.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello and welcome, everyone. In today's session, we hope to gain valuable perspectives on integrating sustainability seamlessly into architectural design for long-term ecological resilience. We are very thrilled to extend this discussion to a larger audience, and we have institutes joining us today and broadcasting this session in their auditoriums, as well as faculty members joining and professionals joining individually. So throughout the session, we encourage we encourage you to engage in the session and ask questions while this session is going on. You can share them in the chat. We are very grateful to our knowledge partners, including GBCI, Biome Environmental Trust, the Rainwater Project, Tarun Bharat Sangh, Out of the Box, Sustainable India, and our media partner, the Architect's Diary. Now I'll give a quick introduction for our first speaker, architect Varsha Gavandi. She is a landscape architect and partner at Ravi and Varsha Gavandi, a firm known for its integrated approach to landscape and architecture. Architect Varsha completed her B.Arch from BKPS College of Architecture, Pune in 1986, followed by an M.Arch in landscape architecture from the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi in 1988. She has over 20 years of experience in academics. She also held the position of Vice President of the Indian Society of Landscape Architects in 2011 and 12. Her expertise lies in creating self-sustaining environments that seamlessly balance ecological concerns with functional design. Through her work, she continues to pioneer sustainable landscape solutions that integrate nature, climate resilience, and built spaces. We are delighted to have her with us today. Welcome, Varsha ma'am. The screen is all yours.
Thank you so much, Ankita. My screen is visible to everybody?
Yes,
It is, Varsha. Yeah.
Thank you, Geeta. First of all, thank you, Geeta, and thank you, Ethos, for making me part of this excellent and very valuable initiative. Thank you so much. So, though the topic is very very vast, sustainability in design or landscape design, my focus today is going to be on water-sensitive approach to site planning. In ideal case scenario, understanding natural processes, mapping them properly, and understanding them in relationship with each other, and then planning is the ideal scenario. But very rarely do we get opportunity to work in this sequence. And many a times as landscape architects or landscape planners, we are involved much later when the planning is already done. So then the second scenario, then we have to adopt second approach, which is for remediation and for mitigation. So today I'll be talking broadly about the theoretical part of water management in site planning, and then through some examples of both the types. Also, I'll talk a little about how detailed design can play important role in taking this forward. Making the sites or making even smaller areas far more water sensitive. So this is just a quick theoretical review of what one is trying to do. The idea is basically to integrate water cycle management with planning and design. We are well aware of what in natural state what happens and in altered state what happens, and the idea is to basically balance the both and bring it as close to as the natural state. So I will not get into details of all this. We just have half an hour. But it's important to understand what exactly we are trying to do in this. The whole objective of this exercise is basically to improve plant environment, augment water resources, improve their quality, reduce negative impacts of stormwater, and preserve ecosystems in very cost-effective manner. And obviously, the advantages or benefits are numerous. The site or the development becomes resilient, it becomes sustainable, there are ecological, economical, social benefits to this approach. How do we really go ahead with this? What is the process? So as I told you earlier, ideal way is designing with nature, whereby you understand the larger landscape, you understand the physical or natural layers of your site and the larger landscape within which your site sits, their interrelationships, you map them properly, and then find the suitability for different types of land uses. As I said earlier, very, very rarely do you get this opportunity. Second, this is understanding and responding to the site landscape, as I said, whether it falls in rain shadow, what is the geomorphology of that particular area, what is the surface, subsurface hydrology layout. So all these things need to be studied, even if we are dealing with, say, a small site of 1 acre in a larger landscape. So understanding the larger landscape is extremely important as understanding your site. Or I would put it this way, unless you understand the larger landscape of which this site is a part, you will not really be understanding your site properly. So then what are the methods, or what are the key actions that one can take? One is placement and design of open spaces and roads with respect to natural drainage pattern. This is very important. So as I said, first you need to understand what is the drainage pattern, how that drainage pattern has evolved, because it's not limited to your own site, but it is much beyond your site. So, and accordingly, you have to make your placements. Preservation and rehabilitation of streams. If there are any streams passing through the site, how do we preserve? Many a times the streams get encroached, they get diverted. So how do you rehabilitate the streams or water courses? And then the 3 M's of stormwater management. One is minimize the difference between runoff before development and after development, minimize the difference in discharge leaving the area after development, and minimize the pollutant load in runoff leaving the developed area. So all these 3 M's are very important as far as stormwater management within site is concerned. Then what tools do you use to do that? So you have, you can, I mean, all those who are interested in knowing more about all these tools, they can, search further or research further on each of these tools. There are vegetated or bioswales, what we call as vegetated swales or bioswales. There are detention or bioretention basins, cleansing biotopes. So each one has its own place in the development. I mean, one cannot have something which is not really suitable for the site. So for each of these tools, one has to really understand what that tool does and whether it is suitable for particular climate, particular site, particular larger landscape, and then only incorporate that within your proposal. There are constructed wetlands, one can harvest water. Then there are flow control weirs. green roofs, controlled outflow channels, riparian landscape at waterfronts, and surface conveyance. So these are different tools we can use to manage the water or to have water sensitive design or site planning. So I'll just take you through some of the examples. The first example, as I said, is where one is not, as a landscape architect, one is not really involved in planning or land use planning. But then once the land use planning is done and it is kind of given to you only for landscape, we as architects, landscape architects or planners, we can always expand our boundaries, expand our scope, and tell the client or educate the client so that at least it helps in the next project. At least they're aware as to what the process should be, at what stage, who should get into picture. So this is a 3,000 hectare site, very close to a reservoir, and on one side of it is hill, and the entire site slopes towards the reservoir. So one has to understand the physical context, one has to understand climate and hydrology. As I said earlier, for larger landscape, what really is the for larger landscape, what is the drainage pattern, and what is the source, where it is leading to. All these things one has to understand, how much water gets generated, and then how much water gets generated within the site. You also need to understand subsurface hydrology. That is also very important, because in this particular site, there were lineaments. And because of certain situations, because the water table was little higher, there were a lot of the entire landscape was dotted with dug wells. So you understand, you can relate why so many dug wells are there in a particular area, or how are they located within the landscape, within that site. Very peculiar location. So relationship of dug well to the stormwater channel. So unless you understand all these finer aspects, you can't really give justice to the project. The topography and so mapping of surface and groundwater areas. And then when you arrive at a policy. So unfortunately, this was for this particular area, it is only for landscape that one is involved. So we sent our comments on the master plan itself and how it is affecting the natural systems, we very quickly understood that what here the role is going to be more of mitigation and remediation rather than, and in some areas where possible, one can protect and integrate. So then you arrive at your goals. You align the rest of the elements as per the important or major elements, like for example, vegetation. So it was observed that all along the gullies or all along the seasonal streams, there is a lot of vegetation. There are wells. So obviously, I mean, it automatically tells you that these areas are important, ecologically important areas, and they need to be handled very carefully. They need to be integrated within the development very carefully. The stream proposal for the stream was, because this is industrial township, proposal for the streams was to channelize it. Some part they had already channelized. And so we had to really fight with those people to make them understand that they have to be brought back to, or they have to be rehabilitated. They have to be brought back to close to their natural state by changing the section, by developing the banks in certain fashion, understanding flood lines and things like that. And then integrating all this, all the open spaces were designed. Like for example, in this particular open space, this being a low lying area, I mean lower than the roads around, the rainwater coming from upstream on the road, because roads generated a lot of storm water, was brought to these areas. There were seasonal wetlands created, and the overflow of those wetlands were let into the drainage system. So at least some part percolated, some part evaporated, changing the microclimate, changing the ecology of that particular area. So these are some of the images of that. There is another example by a renowned architect from Bangalore, Terra Firma, where the site is placed in a shallow U-shaped valley and which is just 3 to 5 meters above mean sea level. So flooding always was the issue. And here they got the opportunity to master plan the site or first study the natural parameters and then really come up with site plan. So the kind of studies that were undertaken, understanding the catchment, watersheds, sub-watersheds, then the visual surveys. So this is the overall picture or overall watershed plan within which this site lies, the one that is marked in dark color, that is the site. And then later on, they came up with this integrated water management plan, where constructed wetlands, bioswales, overflow weirs, control weirs, riparian edges, all those formed part of the entire scheme. And based on this, this was for flood mitigation, this was for protecting the site and development, as well as directing the flow of water. So basically, based on this, development areas were identified and finally the master plan was developed. You can see the section and this is where they have kind of said that 2019, what is the present scenario? You can see that there is flooding and then how they have managed the site to, and eventually in 2035, they kind of anticipate that along the water bodies, there'll be kind of ecosystem, there'll be different habitats that will develop and the development area or developed area or buildings will be protected from flood. So then this overall water management concept was developed where treated water, storm water, everything was surface water, everything was taken into consideration and that water table was kind of worked out. There's another project which I would like to take you through. It is in high rainfall area, high rainfall hilly area, basically. So the left side that you see is the dotted line is basically the ridge. On the left hand side is the ridge and that this is in a source area. So this is from where the natural drainage channels begin or they start. And then when they come to the plains, because of farming and all that, the natural drainage pattern is all disturbed. So initially, whatever may be the drainage pattern, it gets disturbed because of the cultural landscape in that area. And you also have streams. You also have natural streams. You have wells and existing depressions and things like that. So the plan over here was developing this into a plotted development. So while marking the plots or while the original plan was to have smaller plots, but it took time to convince the client that economically they need to see how it works, but at least in the source region, the plots will have to be larger so that the swells are retained and at the same time people get space for constructing to some extent and things like that. But the swells at least will be untouched and they will be retained as they are. Where the drainage pattern was disturbed, there was swells developed, green line vegetated swells developed, which took the water through this valley and then beyond the site. And the open spaces were placed in such a way, or they were kind of located in such a way that all the natural features like streams and springs, they were protected. Depressions, streams and springs were protected as much as possible. So basically, planning is very important based on this. But then detailed design is also equally important because while unless you work out those levels, those fine little details to the last detail, if you don't pay attention, the objective may or may not be fulfilled. So detailed design is very important. And I think grading plays a very, very big role in stormwater or water management, surface water management. Also, in some cases, subsurface water management. So this is another case where, again, it is at the bottom of the hill, that the not exactly in the source area, but it is a foothill. So part of the hill, bottom of the hill, lies within the campus, and the streams kind of flow through the campus, and they get beyond into an area which is already disturbed and kind of partially so-called developed. So the challenge was to not to one option was to divert the water outside the boundary. So we opted for another option where we said let the water pass through the site, let the because that is the, I mean, flow was the theme. So flow, continuity, and change, because this will bring in the change. In monsoon it will be different, in summer it will be different, other seasons it will be different, and this will be kind of a area where people would move, where flora and fauna, I mean fauna in the form of seeds, they kind of move. So that was the theme. And what was proposed was basically we develop a valley and bring in that water within this valley, hold it in the large quarry that was already there on site, and then beyond the quarry, the water will be left to rest of the area. So this is how the master plan was developed. Adequate amount of slope treatment was done, like contour trenching, and wherever there was erosion, coir cloths were used, some talis were used to minimize the erosion. The swells, they had small weirs, so that the water percolated as much as possible. Wherever possible, it accumulated and it percolated, and then finally it came to a swell proposed at the lower area, which flowed below this street along the pathway and got into the through the polishing pond to the quarry. So then finally the holding capacity was the quarry capacity. So backward calculations were made. What is the amount of water that we can hold, and what is the amount of water that can be released further? And based on water availability, how much area can be planted, out of which how can we reduce water consumption later on by using maximum native plantation, using giving more emphasis to trees and plantation, which is kind of ephemeral. So it grows in season, and it's okay even if it kind of dries off in other seasons. So that is how it was developed. So this is that swale, and the first season it carried huge amount of water. Now after a few years, there's a lot of vegetation growing along the stream. Though, I mean, one thing one needs to understand is these man-made waterways or streams, they don't really compensate, or they don't really make for the natural streams. But this is kind of a mid path. I mean, uh, that is a midway kind of solution. If the swales, or if there is no direction to the water, it's better to guide it in some fashion, and it is better to guide it through a vegetated swale rather than guiding it through a constructed swell. Again, this swell also had weirs so that the water could accumulate for some time. It was allowed to percolate for some time. Next is where it's just fun slide actually. So your site water management can become a theme also, or can become your the central theme also. So here there is a hill on the left-hand side, and there is a thick tree grove on the right-hand side. Both are beyond the boundary. And one thought that, what connects both these, or probably because of the slope, what may connect these two is a water channel. And this water channel is basically, on one side, there is a stream, seasonal stream. So this water channel is basically the channel which is seasonal, and which kind of collects all the stormwater at different levels. So this involved a lot of engineering, but that itself became the central feature of the development. So like I said, from planning to detailed design, at times how you deal with levels internally, how you deal with vegetation internally. I mean, vegetation is a different chapter altogether. One can talk for a long time on vegetation and its role in sustainable development. Since the focus today is water, I'll give more emphasis only on water. So basically, land grading also plays a very, very big role. And within a given piece of land, if you manage the grades in such a way that within the land itself, if there is a possibility, it all depends upon what the strata is, where the water table is. So if there is a possibility, you kind of hold water, recharge water, allow it to percolate, because that not only it is for water percolation, but at the same, I mean, it reduces the runoff, but at the same time, it creates microhabitats. So that is also very important, because all these moist areas, they create microhabitats, and they remain moist only seasonally, I mean, not throughout the year. So this map clearly says that the slope is more or less in one direction, but within side, if you could create areas, slopes, so where it slopes away from the structure in every direction, but within those areas there are depressions which kind of hold the water for some time, and then it percolates, and then the overflow of these depressions is only taken forward to the natural stream beyond. So within site also you can actually play around, and the idea here is not to have minimized constructed drains. That is the idea, so that more and more, like I said, moist areas and percolation and all this is promoted within the site. Next example again of detailed design. Here actually the site is in such an area that the soil is very sandy, and it kind of the water percolates very fast. So entire water from the hard areas and the soft areas. So there are three types of areas: hard areas, there are soft areas, and there are areas which allow percolation, which are when a quick percolation, so which are gravel areas. And within gravel areas, only the trees are planted, so shaded gravel areas. So the idea basically was the central courtyard and the building roof, the water was collected within this water body along the courtyard. The water body is designed in such a way that you have summer level, you have monsoon level, and this in itself is treated like irrigation supply tank for most of the area. And the peripheral areas, from all hard paved areas, the water actually gets into the vegetation area. So detailing is done in such a way. So all those areas that are indicated in light blue, they are the areas where the water is diverted and it is allowed to percolate. So then how do you manage curves? How do you manage levels so that the water gets into these areas is kind of interesting to work on. Another example where the recycled water, there being hostels or there being the population being substantial, the entire wastewater is actually recycled through the reed beds that are indicated. So reed beds themselves become landscape actually. Reed beds are part of the overall landscape. So this was in conceptual stage, so they did not take really interesting forms and all that. But there is a possibility of working further and converting this itself into a aesthetically appealing garden. So this is just basically the calculation chart where all the recycled water, and based on the water availability, then the soft areas or gardening areas or irrigated areas were decided. Another example where basically a depression is created to separate the areas to kind of control erosion, the soil that flows, because this is all good agricultural soil. These otherwise remain as moist areas all around. There is only native plantation, existing forest is retained. it comes to a pond, and beyond pond, it kind of gets into this valley. There is a valley down below, and now there is a pond at lower level also within this area. So these are the ponds that are created at different levels. Swells, bioswells, even the pond construction doesn't have to be a hard pond. Sorry, rain bioswale. So these sections, one has to apply mind and develop for different situations. So we did a substantial amount of research to find out what are the standard sections and all that. Then we realized that it has to be site specific. It has to match your requirements, and it has to serve that purpose. So rain gardens. Another example where a stream or a water course passes through the site, already disturbed within the site, highly disturbed within the site, and highly channelized by the site above. So it's higher in level, already disturbed by them. So then basically you can create waterways which eventually look very natural. They function very well because you have vegetation on the side. So things start growing within the water bodies. Even though they are dry during summer, they don't really look, unpleasant. So design intervention, wherever possible, you should kind of protect. But if it is not possible, if they don't exist at all, and if you have to recreate something, you can take clues from nature. They can never imitate, or they can never really compete with natural streams, but you can take clues from nature and really create waterways. Then there are within streams, there are certain interventions. There is a very nice book by Dr. Prakash Gole on stream restoration, very small booklet on stream restoration, which tells you about all these methods of at what place and where you should have these half moon bunds, which kind of hold the water for some period, and they become fish habitats. They become habitats for fish. So fish ladders within the streams, half moon bunds, and talis that allow percolation, but at the same time they hold the soil and stop erosion or control erosion. Then coir cloths and liners for the sides where the slopes are eroding, and of course plantation beyond that, which will hold the sites. So all these can be adopted for natural streams which are kind of disturbed. This also, actually, I had a video, but I was not sure whether I'll be able to play the video because it was very heavy. So it is on a, again, high rainfall area. For this particular bund, we kind of we took guidance from people who assisted Rajendra Singh ji, and there are very interesting things that they told us, that existing vegetation, out of that vegetation you can use certain type of dead vegetation within these talis to as reinforcement and things like that. So we kind of applied that, and then it holds water for substantial amount of time, but at the same time it allows the excess water to percolate through. So hard bunds are not always recommended unless they are very low bunds. If they are little higher bunds, then they should be they should allow percolation of water through the bunds. Again, coming to detailed design, I think this is the last one. Again, coming to the detailed design. First of all, I think you can, within inner development, you can reduce, you can think about, we have spoken about water budget and all that, but you can also think of methods, innovative methods and aesthetically appealing details, which kind of reduce the plantation area and, allow water flow, because this being on podium, we wanted something which will kind of, it served three purposes: setting for the building, because building was supposed to be floating above landscape. Then easy passage for water on podium slab. So we had to really use minimum kind of outlets for the slab, because the slopes carried the water to certain area. And then though these look like very thin beds all along the building, they occupy a substantial amount of area, and that reduce the required water quantity to by substantial amount. So how you choose vegetation, how you detail out the areas, how you create opportunities for water percolation, they matter a lot in detailed design. I think that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Varsha. You brought up a very important discussion about how the ecosystem is not limited to one's site boundary and how to navigate them. I often talk about this not just with respect to water and landscape, but with respect to our social and environmental responsibility as well, and how your site doesn't end with your site boundaries. I'm sure that Asmita, our mentee, will learn so much more from you during the one-on-one session that is going to happen after this session. Thank you once again. And I now take the privilege to introduce architect Tony Joseph, who will be exploring design detailing and construction with a variety of sustainable materials. He is the principal architect and Stapati, a renowned multidisciplinary firm with offices in Calicut, Kochi, Bengaluru, and Chennai. With a strong foundation in both science and the arts, Tony first earned a degree in physics before pursuing architecture at MIT Manipal. He later completed his MArch at the University of Texas, Austin, under the Charles Moore program. Since the founding of Stapati in 1989, Tony has been instrumental in shaping context-driven and sustainability-focused architecture. His firm is celebrated for seamlessly blending contemporary design with regional narratives, as seen in so many landmark projects like the Kumarakam Lake Resort in Kerala, the Alila Diva in Goa, and even the Enchanted Island Resort in Seychelles. With a deep commitment to innovation, sustainability, and cultural relevance, Tony continues to redefine modern architectural practice. We are honored to have him with us today. Welcome, Tony. And
Hi.
yeah, hi.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to let you know that I'm coming to Calicut to spend a month, and I'll come and spend more time with you. That's between 15th of April and May 15th, and I'll come and see some of your projects there.
Great. Huh?
Over to you. Yeah. 1 month, yes. I'm staying in a place near Iron Kozhikode. But I think, yeah, this is about the session today, so over to you on that.
Okay, good morning. I didn't realize that. I thought I was going to be talking to one person. I didn't realize that I'm going to be talking to a whole group of students. Anyway, good morning to all of you. Yeah, I think am I clear? Am I audible? Okay, good. Okay, I think I'll just take you through one of my presentation. I don't know how it works. I'm going to take you through one of my presentation. And this is about something in architecture which I felt was being lost nowadays when we talk about architecture. And I thought it's important to talk about emotion in architecture, about emotive architecture. No? And so I thought I'll take you through a presentation, and then we'll have a discussion or whatever. Can we see? Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir. Can you make it in a slideshow mode? It's a normal PowerPoint screen right now.
Thank you. Was it now? It's the same situation.
No, yes, it is in slideshow mode.
Great. Okay, my firm is called Stapati, and we have the firm itself is made in a different format, where we always believe that architecture is a collective and it is not about one person. So whenever architects comes to us, then we see them as future partners in our firm. And at the moment, we have 7 partners with our offices in Calicut and Cochin and Bangalore and Dubai. Yeah. And the practice, we try to be, I know it's a large office, so sometimes people ask us what is the type of work we do. We say that, no, we take whatever which comes along. I mean, we are not discerning that way. The only thing we are discerning is about the fees. If they're willing to pay the fees, we are willing to take whatever projects. But as long as it fits into our ethos, on what we believe in, and that is important. I know we do commercial projects. We understand the how commercial projects are to be done. At the end of it, it has to be meaningful for the person who is doing the development. Anyway, I'm going to take you through some of the projects which we are doing and on what we believe in. Yeah, it's not moving. Yeah. Oh, I thought we'll start with Pav Bhaji. I think I wanted to talk about Pav Bhaji because, as Indians, when we see Pav Bhaji, especially in the north, it gives you a certain emotion. You connect with that. There is a emotive connection to food, and you have to understand that we can connect so much to a food. In Kerala, it is about parota and beef. And then each place in India has got its own food, which you connect to emotively. So somehow in architecture, we forget about that. I think architecture, sometimes what happens is it just becomes a lot about the form and function and all those things. So emotion is when it can bring about the feeling of nostalgia, surprise, admiration, connection, and distress, love, gratitude, hope. And these are the words which come when we talk about emotions. And a good example is what we call the white room theories. The white room is a room where you are totally cut off from all colors, all textures, all even the light is white, everything is done white. And these white rooms were used to torture people. Actually, in Iran and the CIA, there is recorded history of people being tortured in a white room. And the idea of it totally plays with your senses, actually, when you are in a totally white room without any color and any texture and any different sort of light. It affects a person, your senses, and in a way, people have come out of certain white rooms after being imprisoned in white rooms for a long time, emotionally scarred forever. I think they still get affected so much, which we don't realize. We think, oh, nice white room. But then you don't realize how much it can affect you. In fact, we created a semi-white room for one of the income tax officers here. I mean, they are not going to imprison anybody there. But when they were going to have interrogate some of the or discuss with some of the businessmen about some of their dealings, they wanted a room which was almost white. So the idea is that a room like that can affect you so much. And this is what is happening in some of our offices in everywhere, where you have this totally emotionless spaces. Like you are put in a room like that. There is a limit to how much you can function. So today, rooms like that, this one what you are seeing is disappearing. In India, it may be slow, but across the world, if you go to the new offices, they try their best to make the space more emotive. So these are the type of offices which we build where, in Bangalore, you'll see many of the offices like this where people are just kept in line, where you lose touch with reality. Emotionally, you are affected. You see IT personnel giving up their job and going for baking and cooking and gardening. After about 5 or 6 years, they leave the profession because the spaces affect them a lot. So the question is, how do we do a emotive architecture? And one of the people who talked a lot about emotive architecture is Louis Barragan, who's an architect in Mexico. Is no longer there. He's one of the first person when modernity came. He's one of the first person. Modernity, in a way, when it first came, it came where only the function and the form was the most important thing. Functionality and the materiality was all about making the basic structure. Most of the buildings you would see will be totally white without any character. And Louis Barragan is one of the person who broke that mold first, where he started to bring color into architecture in a big way. Interesting thing is Louis Barragan, like so many architects so many people whom we call architects from Corbusier to Nice to so many of them, they didn't have an architecture degree, but they did better architecture than most and taught all of us architects. And I would say they were better architects than the people who went to the colleges and took a degree in architecture. So Barragan is one person who changed it, who brought color into architecture and made a more emotive architecture. And Corbusier, although he was a modernist, there was a lot of his buildings which totally were very, very emotive. Like one of the things is the Roncham Cathedral in France. It was interesting. A group of architects from Kerala had gone to visit Europe to see some of this architecture, and they went into this Roncham Cathedral church there, and a few of them were crying. So it was interesting. There were a group of people who and so the architect were very serious, who walked into that, and somehow they were so emotional that they cried. Maybe it was not only because of the architecture there, because they were seeing something which they in college was one of their projects which really they looked up at, and maybe it was also that. I mean, the emotionality can come due to various reasons, and one of the interesting new projects where emotion played a very key part. The design was the Jewish Museum in Berlin, done by Daniel Libeskind. And it was like an incredible experience when you go there. Everything about the museum was how to bring back the emotions of when millions were burned by the Nazis, And when you walk through those spaces, the things which you see when you are there, the volumes and the scale, the light and shadow, materiality, the sound, touch, everything played a part in this design. These are the elements which make a building emotional. I mean, these are the things which create a emotive quality to a building. Again, the September 11 Memorial Museum, it's a simple water body which just goes into that hole there, I mean, creates a very different sort of emotion when you go there. It was supposed to capture the loss which had happened to thousands of people who died there. So this is how architecture could be, It is something which can resonate with the user emotionally. You can have a white box like this, but the moment you bring in the same space there, you open up the windows, you bring in the trees and greenery, you open it up to the scenes outside, and you play with it, change the flooring, you bring in the materiality and all those things. It totally changes. So this is how architecture can change a space, and this is a simple drawing which illustrates how something can be changed by just uh, uh, making differences in how you do that. No? Okay, so effectively it is about scale and the space uh, which can make a place emotive. It can be the light and shadow which can play uh, on you. It can be the color and materiality. The materiality can be anything, the textures, the plants, the trees, which can change a space. The sound and touch is a very important thing in changing a space. And all these things combine to create a space. Finally, you say when you enter a space, the space has to enter you. No, I mean that is how a good building works. And Louis Barragan always said that architecture is an art where one consciously or unconsciously treat aesthetic emotions in the atmosphere. And when this environment produces well-being. So that is what architecture should be doing, and that is what we should be trying to achieve. And then I think we'll go into some of the projects which we have done at Stapati. You have to understand ours is a large practice. We try to do architecture which relates to the context where we are working, and it in a way could be emotive in the way it is designed. I am not saying that, we are still trying to reach there. I don't see, we always feel, I think our practice has been there for 35 years, but we are always learning, trying to be better. We have done a lot of horrible buildings, don't get worried. I mean, as a practice which has been there for 35 years, we have the advantage of the ability to show you nice buildings and nice photographs. So be daring, try to do whatever you can do, the best you can do. And so now for today, I am going to show you 3-4 projects. These are some of the resorts which we have done around. These are some of the newer projects which are just being completed or being complete now. I mean, getting complete now. These are some of the interiors of some of the buildings which we have done. Some of the homes and some of the homes which we have done, I think. Yeah. So I would start with a project which is in Calicut, is a residence. And I have to say it is my own residence in Calicut. The site was there was not a blade of grass on the site. Actually, when we started the site, it was a sloping site, which 1 or 2 cashew trees. That was it, and so a lot of rocks and boulders there. Lateritic soil. It was a laterite soil. Not a blade of grass. And this, I think I started the project 7-8 years back. And what happens is that when an architect does his own house, he spends the least time. Fortunately, my wife was there pushing me. So I had to go there once in a while. Otherwise, this becomes an area where it becomes you design and then not till it is somewhat nearing complete, you don't get into it and you get involved in the finishing part of it. Anyway, the design was taking into consideration the axis and the slope of the land. And as an architect, you are not like a big businessman. You have to be very careful about the money you are spending there. So every material mattered, every level mattered, everything which we did there mattered in terms of pricing and the cost and the money which was being spent there. Yeah. In a way, it was a blank canvas because there was not a single tree there on the site, and there was not even a shrub there. So the site on the left side is the western side. When we designed it, what we did was we made sure that the eastern side we opened up. I think on the right side, eastern side, you have the large windows there, which is protected with big overhangs. On the left-hand side, we have reduced the size of the window, and in a way that section which you see on the west, that window section, that is the only window which has got a double glaze. Even it's a smaller window, but it is a double glazed window. All the rest of the windows are just a single frame because it is all covered and protected from the glare. On the right side, we have a glass window. On the top, we have a portion in the top is still only a net there so that there is a continuous airflow. There is only a netting on the top. And this portion of the house, the main living area, doesn't have a permanent air conditioning there. It is only the fans. Even in the worst of summer, we are fine there. So the entry is from the right side. You can see the entry. We enter at a lower level, and so we come into the house. We have the parking and all there. So it is the whole design has been done taking into consideration the slope of the site to avoid the cutting and filling. I mean, reduce the amount of cutting and filling there. Then you come up to the top level where we have the main house opens up there, and in a way this shows somewhat the residence. And anytime you come to Calicut, you can come over. This is the first floor where we have the bedrooms, and that is the house. So this is the section beyond where you can see the pool, and we have the filtration and all beyond that, and the whole land steps down as per the contour. Yeah. So this is 5 years we moved in, and this is how the entry looks now. We have planted all these trees, and now the house is almost blocked by the trees there. And 1 or 2 trees we transplanted. Rest of the trees and the bamboo are all what has grown there over 5 years. Yeah. So, and that is also the advantage of being in Kerala. It may not happen that way in other parts of India. Okay. So this is where you enter the house now on the lower level. And this is the section through the house. This is when you sit on the dining, and this is the eastern side glass, and the top portion of the whole frame is netting, one layer of netting, so that the air there's always an airflow there. So the materiality of the house is kadapa, which is the cheapest stone we can get. The whole walls are all white cement and cement there. There's no paint has been used in the whole house. Outside it's still the plastering only, which has been buffed, nothing else. And the whole woodwork in the house is using. We had bought one old house from South Kerala, which was totally made in wood, and which we bought for some 4 lakhs. We use that wood throughout the building, and 70% of the wood in the building is from that one house. As you can see, there is no paint being used in the whole house. This is the area which we use the most, which is open to the views there. Yeah. All the woodwork which you see are from that old house which we bought. I mean, you are not going to be seeing the whole place. It is as open as possible, so there's the airflow. If you can see I don't know whether you can see my cursor. So the netting portion is that top area. That whole area is the area which has been netted so that there is always an airflow. Yeah, so this shows some of the spaces in the bathroom opens up totally to the view there. Again, there's no material changes even here. We don't have any tiles or anything. I mean, the same cement walls continue there. Yeah, so that is the residence there. Then we have one of the projects which I have done about 25 years back. When I was 25, I started this project about 30 years back when I just about 5th or 6th year into my practice. And even after 25, 26 years since it is started functioning. This project is considered to be one of the recently voted as one of the top 5 resorts in India. And this is in Kumarakam. It is called the Kumarakam Lake Resort. And the site, as you can see, was a coconut farm there in a marshy waterway. And what they did there was that they will dig up little soil there, this marshy soil, and scoop it up and plant coconut trees. So you had all these lines of water body with these coconut plants in between. Yeah, lines of this coconut plants. At the plan, you can see the coconut plants there. I can just show you that. And it was in a way a small coconut plantation there. So if you can see my cursor, can you see my cursor?
Yes, sir, we can.
Yeah. So these are the coconut trees, and they used to have these streams of water there in between, and they'll scoop up that soil and create these coconut patches. Here also it was the same. You had this line of coconut trees. So it was this, on the section you can see the coconut tree, the water body, coconut tree, water body. So in a way, planning that resort was very easy because we just looked at that water bodies and trees. We tried to retain some of the water bodies there and some of the coconut trees there, and we just built whatever we wanted there. So in a way, that whole site, in most cases, the site tells us what to do. And in this case, the site was very clear on what we should be doing. And this is how the planning finally ended up. And this is how some of the images of the resort. And this is here again, what we did was, this is one of the large pools which we have there, which was along one of those water bodies which was there existing. Yeah. Here again, what we did is, this was done about 25. I started working on it about 30 years back. And that time, the Kerala architecture was looked down by everybody. Everybody wanted this very modern architectural. And we felt that we had to bring back, if a tourist is coming, they would love to see what Kerala culture was all about. And so here's a project where we try to bring back what Kerala was all about. And a lot of the buildings were being demolished. So people were selling these old houses and all. So our people went and bought many of those old houses, and we used all those materials in a big way in this resort. The structure which you see there was an old house which was being sold, almost being sold to a dealer, wood dealer actually. And we went there and we spoke to that person, and finally they could buy this house a little bit cheaper than what that other guy had offered, telling them that we are going to retain that whole structure, and this is something where your kids and grandchildren can come and see. So that is one of the few structures which was transplanted. There were 2 buildings which were transplanted. Rest were all new structures which were done in that whole project. This is a newly done area. This is the reception. But a lot of the wood which were used were old wood which we had collected. So this is the room, typical room here. Every element in this room was designed that time, from the fabric to the color to the lighting to everything was we had to sat with the viewer. We had a whole set of mural artists who came, and we told them how and what we needed there. Yeah, I mean, if I start going into each project, that will take a long time. We'll just run through some of the projects. Then I wanted to take you through to a project which is of a different scale. This was a large office for Malabar Gold. Malabar Gold is a jewelry brand which has come up in last 20 years. And this was their headquarters in Calicut. And usually when we talk about somebody who's doing somebody who's in the business of gold and all, we would expect a lot of marble and granite and all those things. But here we were able to convince the client, or the client themselves, the chairman himself had a lot of clarity on that. He wanted something which was going along with the nature. The issue was that we had to have a building which had to house all their requirements and all their cars. So I think we have to go faster. So this shows how a large building we could do, which we a modern building. At the same time, know how we could work along with the context. It was on a hillside, and we decided that it could come and merge with the ground there. And we decided that the slope would be on towards the southern side, where we could open up the northern side to having bigger windows there. And the south, we had this landscape which would cut down the heat from the south. And the building was designed on the slope, and we made sure that it was along the slope. We didn't want to have a huge cutting and destroy the whole landscape there, the contour there. So we had, since on the south side, the hill was on the eastern side, we had to, and it was blocked from there. So it was blocked from there. We have created a whole courtyard there in between, so that we have beautiful lighting there. And the west side, the problem was the hill was sloping from east to west, and which is against the Vastu. But then they seem to be doing quite well. So at the end of it, more than the Vastu, I think when you go to a design in a site, I think respecting the land is more important than worrying about the site. I have had issues in many places where if you have a land which slopes to the west, we were asked to build up the west and slope it down to the east. Here, we worked on the existing slope. And this is the internal courtyard which was created. These are the different levels. So this is a section through the parking area there, and which you can see the elevation of the building itself. And since it was on the western side, this is the building. The lower level is the parking. In fact, in future, one more level is supposed to come there, which blocks the parking and opens up again to the view beyond. So this is the parking area where we have this planting there. We don't have, and it is open. And this is the building now. So the western side, you had the heat from the west, but the view also was to the west. So what we did is what we call the green buffer, which cuts off the heat from the west, and at every level they had a greenery. So you had this, we created this green terraces there, where with a screen which from each room you can see the view. It cuts off the heat load on the glass there, and creates a beautiful space at each level. This is on the top floor. That photograph is taken from the top floor of that building. So you can see the cement flooring. We have used the cement flooring, and just the green wall there. The courtyard in between with the solar, which provides about 30% of the power requirement there. And this is how the building looks from the top. We have landscape. This was when the landscaping was happening. And this is how people are using those spaces. So anyway, definitely not a white box. And this is how the building looks when I am coming down from I am staying nearby. When I come down, this is the view I get. That large building is totally merged into the landscape now. Yeah. Teamtai is again a small office space, which is designed along a slope, as you can see. It was a small site where we designed, again, this is a site which was sloping up slowly. The whole building was designed along that slope up. This is on a main highway. And on the western side, we had this wall, a barrier wall there. And the building was separated from that barrier wall to create a space where the heat is not affecting the building itself, where the office spaces And this is how the building looks. The screen is to the front where there is a highway. Yeah. And this is where you enter the building. Actually, at this level, we didn't break it into rooms and all. It opens up into the landscape. So the landscape is taken into that space there. Again, when I talk about emotive architecture, I have to say earlier where you see the car on the wall, there was a reception. And the client, who is a car enthusiast, and on the right side, you can see his first car, which we have kept there. We have painted it in silver and kept it there. That is his first car. And he collects cars. I mean, he has all the cars, fancy cars in the world. But this, what car is this? Porsche. This Porsche. Yeah, he didn't want to give it up because he felt there were so many memories to that Porsche, which he had nice memories of using that car. He had driven over 1 lakh kilometer in that. And he said, I have so many memories in that, I don't want to throw it away. So finally, he fixed it up on the wall. Later on, the reception here was removed and the Porsche came up on the wall. Again, in a way, you can say it is very emotive as far as the client is concerned because it reminds me of all the memories which he had. So that is how it works. It gave him a lot of mileage in terms of coverage and all. So in two ways it worked. In one way, it connected him to all the memories he had. In the second way, for his company, it gave him a lot of mileage in terms of people coming there and yeah. So this is how the whole office merges with the landscape. So the space is up to the boundary. It becomes that the volume there. Now, the room there. Yeah. So now we'll end up with a small project which I've done, which is totally on all the things which I was talking about. It was talking about the scale and light and shadow, the color, materiality, sound and touch and everything. This was a pavilion which I had to do for the biennial and which was supposed to last for 100 days. And we got about 100 days to build this. And one of the things which we did was we used the materials on the site. There were previous biennials which had happened there. There were a lot of blocks of brick and this and that and all there. So we used the whole wall was what we call a debris wall, where it was made using all the debris on the site. And every material which we used, where a lot of students came to join and creating this project. And, we know Daniel, he's on the left. He helped me in creating this wall. And we used the stones and other things which were left there. And we used materials which could be recycled and which could be reused and which were already used. The whole roofing was used by flex sheets, which we bought for 3 rupees a square feet from the hoardings, used hoardings. And the inside, this is the pattern which we created on using the wall. This is the material where in Kerala people come and make temporary galleries. We use those guys who came and make temporary galleries. They make the galleries, and when the event is over, they take it all off, take it back. On the ceiling, we collected a whole set of old saris from people, and then we used it for the ceiling, for the lighting. And we had this collection of old saris. And bottom, you can see we had this lighting below, which would change color and create a whole sort of drama in the whole place. So you can see the mud walls. And the curve in the mud wall is because of the shuttering being stretched. And this is the screen. On the roof is the old sari which we used. When the events happened, it added to the event. The change in color of the roof created an incredible feel within the property. Yeah, this is how the whole space worked. One of the conditions for the biennial was that they wanted to have a air-conditioned space because of the noise levels around and the mosquitoes around. So the stage, below the stage is the not the below the stage, in the front of the stage, part of it is concealed. There is a AC vent which pushes the air out. That is my partners, and yeah, we look very different from the architecture which you saw now. Okay. Anyway, thank you. Thank you so much. That is our whole team of around 140 people. We have at Stapati. A collective. Stapati, as far as we are concerned, is a collective, and we all create, do what we do here now. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony sir, for your insightful presentation and taking us through your beautiful projects. I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to both of our speakers, architect Tony Joseph and architect Varsha Gavandi, for sharing their expertise and perspectives. We got to learn so much from you guys today. And now we will move on to the Q&A session for both of our speakers. I would like to ask the mentees, students, and individuals to ask questions. You could share them in the chat or turn on your mics and you could ask questions now.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, Bhagya ma'am.
Yeah. My question, Tony sir. It was wonderful to see the gamut of works. I just wanted to understand, like, when you said emotions, so do you also consider the diversity of user group? Like, I'm not talking only the background, also the idea of including uh, the wide spectrum, like persons with disabilities, whether it is physical or cognitive. So how do we imbibe that qualities in the whole spectrum of architecture that we envisage to bring in emotions?
I think when we talk about scale and the quality of the space, somebody who is blind may not be able uh, to be responsive to that much like we are. They may be to we may not be we may not know how much they're able to do that. But in terms of materiality, for sure, in terms of sound, sure, in terms of touch, sure. So these are the things. So when you talk about emotive architecture, scale and light and shadow and color and materialities and sound and touch, all these things are there. And depending on the person's disabilities or abilities, nowadays we don't talk about disabilities. They are differentially abled people, and depending on what they are able to enjoy or be emotive about, we can bring that into the project. I think there are limitations, and nowadays, whatever project we do, we make it a point to make sure that it is accessible by all. It is wheelchair friendly. For the blind, we are not yet there. I think there is a long way to go to service to really be really care about the visually impaired. I think we as architects and in generally all over, unlike the West, I think we need a long way to go before our cities and buildings become a little more concerned about the visually impaired. Yeah. Yeah, that's all I can say.
Thank you, sir. And it was lovely seeing a spectrum of projects through last 30 years. Thank you. Thank you so much. Very inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony sir. Next, we have for Varsha ma'am. Ma'am, in your experience, what are some of the overlooked elements in site planning that significantly impact sustainability?
So, as I said during the presentation, one of the most important things is how the site is part of larger landscape. Because Geeta also, spoke about it. We tend to look at site in isolation, and we don't really look at it as part of bigger landscape, and that is where things may not really be, you know, uh, because for site to be sustainable, it is very important to understand how it is a part of that larger landscape. So I think knowing about larger landscape and understanding the larger landscape is one of the most important things, I would say. Second thing I would say is the natural layers of the site. They are also very important. Natural layers of the site, the history or culture of the site. So site study is extremely important, understanding the site. And site study does not only mean that mapping, because as far as landscape is concerned, actually the study cannot happen overnight or study cannot happen in 2 visits. Ideally speaking, the if you really want to understand the site, you really have to spend time at different times, different seasons, and then only you kind of understand the site. And if you don't have that much time, best way to do is to actually look at similar situations in different seasons. So I think uh, the site analysis and synthesis is something which is very important.
Okay, ma'am, thank you. We have one more from Ganesh for you.
Is very important. Taking cues from that is very important for sustainability.
Yes, ma'am. We have another one from Ganesh. He's asking, how do you convince the client when we speak about the selection of the plant species?
Good question. uh, See, after a few initial, so basically you have to be a little smart, I would say. I mean, one is balance. There is something that clients aspire for, and there is something that the site or the context requires. So those seeking that balance is very important. You many a times you cannot be very adamant in saying that no, I have to have only native plants, but you can probably work on the lines of using maximum native plants but introducing some exotics which are non-invasive, not harmful for the environment. So I think seeking balance is very important. So if you seek balance and if you show them that, or if you demonstrate that, by using the plants that you want to use, mostly native to the region or native to the area, uh, we are what all benefits you are getting, like attracting pollinators, dramatic seasonal changes. So if you can achieve those qualities by using the plant palette that you want to use, I don't think anybody really objects. But seeking balance initially is very important. You have to understand what the client also wants. And some get convinced, some do not get convinced. So there you have to seek that balance.
Thank you, ma'am. One more from Gaurav. At residential bungalow scale, we are quite dependent on using bore wells in the region I work in. There have been local adapted methods without any clear reference of how to recharge these wells and distance of these recharge pits.
Mhm. So there are manuals published. I don't remember by whom, but there are manuals published which give you guidelines for, uh, in a scientific manner, how do you recharge the bore wells and how do you maintain these bore wells. So I'll just look for those manuals and post it on the group or something.
Okay. One more for Tony sir from Shivashini. She says, I'm a big fan of your practice, and her question is, If you were to design an old age home, what would be the main factors you would keep in mind? Some tips would be very helpful. This is for Tony, sir. Sir, I think you are on mute.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear?
Yes.
Can you hear? Yeah. What was the last word? What would be very helpful? Huh?
It would be very helpful to know if you were to design an old age home, what would be the main factors you were to keep in mind?
Okay. Yeah, naturally, we have to make sure that it is accessible to all. I mean, the age for wheelchair and everything. We have done one or two facilities for retired people, where from the toilet to the bedroom to wherever they are accessing the uh, that is one thing which is very, very important, that I think everybody would naturally do that. In terms of design, of course, it has to be designed where it is emotive, as I was talking about, where they have for us, when we do, greenery is very important, landscape is very important, and so that really relaxes a person. I mean, greenery is something which can relax a person a lot. Technically, there are a lot of things which we need to see about the railings and the heights and the materiality and everything. Then even in terms of toilets, we have toilets quite kept quite frequently because somebody in that age and they want to go to the toilet, you cannot ask them to walk another 50, 60 meters to reach the next toilet. So we make sure these things are kept where they have easy access and usability. So a lot of factors are there, which when you design something for aged people. Yeah. Yeah.
Tony, can I add to that?
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
So one of the observations has been that they feel many a times they feel alienated. So at times they want that community feeling. They want to view people or view activities. That is very important. So I mean, what I have observed or I have experienced is that they don't like really isolation. They want visual connectivity with other activities, and they want to be part of that overall community.
It was interesting. Yesterday, we were discussing with the client for whom we were doing a project, and he was saying the project which we are doing is having around a facility for 300 people. So there we have a lot of areas where they come together, from libraries to the yoga room to theaters to so many facilities are there for them. And he was saying that the minimum number, he says, it should be there, should be 300. Because people form their own little circle of friends who have similar interests. People having, so if it is just a facility with 20, 30 people, I mean, they are people who are 60, 70-year-old, and they already have their own way they look at things, and it's very difficult to form new uh, friendship with people who have different ideas. So when there are numbers, it helps to form. They feel more at home. They have friends there whom they can have similar interests. And naturally, I think you need a crowd there. I mean, isolation is a big issue, like you were saying. And you need a set of people there too, so that they feel they want to have the privacy, and they should have the provision to be in a group also. Yeah. Right.
Thank you, Tony, sir. Shivashini also said that if she could know about some project names you were referring to, she could do a site study.
Yeah. Ananta living in Palakkad. Yeah, you can see that.
Okay. Thank you. Now we will not take any more questions. We are short on time. We have to head to the one-on-one sessions. Tony, sir will go in the session with Gaurav. Sir, there will be a breakout room. You will get a pop-up. You have to enter that room
Yeah.
and you'll join that session. And Varsha ma'am will have a session with Asmita. So, ma'am, you also look out for the breakout room option.
It's room 1.
Yes,
Arun, can you confirm?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Ankita, you can do the main session and I will